Welcome to Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. A world where coming in second place is not an option, but where principle-centered winning is the only approach.
Good morning and welcome to Government Contracting Weekly. I'm Jim McCarthy, the owner of Key Solutions and the host of this show. If there is any one question that our regular viewers would want to know the answer to, it is, what kind of year is this going to be and where are the big opportunities I should be looking out for? Well, joining me again today to help us answer those questions is Jamie Bratten, the CEO of EZ GovOpps. Specifically, I'll be asking Jamie to identify some hot opportunities, to compare and contrast the current period versus recent years, and to give us a breakdown of activity at various federal agencies and other questions of interest to our industry. There's a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. Good morning. I'm here with Jamie Bratten, CEO of EZ GovOpps. Jamie, welcome back to the show, Chief.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Jamie here today is going to talk about really two things. One are some really hot items, opportunities, if you will, targets of business opportunity, and then we're going to sort of characterize the market to date and sort of judge how that's doing. So it's going to be a very important show with some good data, so thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. So the first thing, let's start with opportunities. There's a lot of agencies out there. I'll just pick one. Let's start with the Department of Health and Human Services. What's the lay of the land there?
Absolutely. Within NIH, through HHS, there's a new program that's actually replacing ECS-3. It's a new carryover. That next generation basically is what they're calling it. And I brought some kind of some stats and figures and so forth. It's a pretty big program. It's called the RMADA, RMADA program, which has a ceiling of $7 billion. $7 billion, which is a staggering number for coming out of NIH. So we're really excited about that. The whole purpose of that particular new program is because of the Affordable Care Act. So they're trying to spur business because of that.
It's a derivative of the
It's a derivative there,
okay,
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So that's a big program within the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, and so it sounds like that would offer some teaming opportunities,
absolutely,
partnering kinds of things.
Absolutely, and a lot of local activity, in this region, which is really good for contractors.
That's good for our viewing audience.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, that sounds good. Now, how about we'll start with another one.
Sure.
You talked about off camera. We talked about the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. What's happening in that particular submarket?
NOAA is trying to spur some activity. They have a new program called ProTech, which has a pretty high ceiling. NOAA is not one of the larger agencies in a sense of spending per se, but they've got a big program with $5 billion that they're anticipating in a new release of 2014 as well. And all these programs, activity-wise, are activity-wise in this year, 2014 and beyond. So know that all of these programs are going to start releasing activity for new awardees, in the second quarter and beyond.
Do you anticipate that these are going to be multiple award IDIQ contracts?
Several of them will be. I should say most of them will be. Some are planned for 10, 12, certain awardee numbers, and some are larger, in sense of sheer size, and much larger.
Okay, so the program is called ProTech, and it's going to be issued by the by NOAA.
Correct.
And it's got a ceiling of $5 billion.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Pretty good. Okay, and we talked about the Army. How about giving us a quick preview of the Army and what's going on there?
The Army has two really exciting things happening actually very soon, and there's been a lot of interest, from our members, about these, two specific programs, specifically the one that's S32G, which is it's called second generation. It's a derivative thereof of R24G and that particular program, which had a $16 billion ceiling initially on that particular program. So this is another extension, extension of that. They were planning around October for the release of those new awardees, of those new, and the numbers are not known as of yet in the sense of the first wave. There's certain pools per se that get released.
But is this fair to say this is a new start? Is it a new program?
It's a new program.
I know it's a continuation.
It's a continuation
of 4G.
Exactly, and what this is based for Aberdeen Proving Ground. A lot of work and obviously efforts in that particular location.
So that's where it's headquartered or
exactly,
located. Okay.
Exactly, and it was just local.
Okay, so is it reasonable to think that the incumbents under the R24G program are going to be active and participating in the follow-on or the successor contract?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And they're prepping, and they have been prepping for about a year in advance with the announcement of this new program,
okay,
the eventuality of being released.
Okay. Any read on the small business aspect of this?
All these contract dollars are going to be massive amount of dollars, just because of the sheer budget that they've allocated for this. So there'll be subbing opportunities, but the sheer magnitude of the actual awards per se for each awardee is going to be a staggering amount. So there's going to be a lot of major players going to be involved with this.
So it's really the second generation of the Army Strategic Sourcing Program.
Correct.
That's what it is.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so that's one of the Army programs. You mentioned there was a second one. Tell us about that.
There actually is another Army program. It's chess, another derivative thereof. There's a couple of variations of chess. EZ 3 is a new program. It's their IT services and Army's basically infrastructure. Obviously, they're concerned about cyber attacks and so forth, so they're changing and revamping their entire infrastructure throughout all the Army locations. So this is a new program that's geared for any kind of business, small business obviously included as well. So there's going to be a lot of awardees that per se part of this
nationwide coverage, kind of like?
Nationwide.
Nationwide.
Exactly.
Okay. Multiple awards.
Multiple awards.
IDIQ.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
with great teaming opportunities.
Exactly.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, well, I wanted to share Air Force. Air Force is a big one.
Thank
Air
you.
Force with NetSense. NetSense, there already is an existing program, NetSense, but they're coming out with a new version, a new variation for small business, which is really key. They anticipate a tremendous amount of business specifically for small business. A lot of the incumbents in the current NetSense environment are really, really big, big companies. So they're really trying to focus on in that particular venue for small business. There's a big ceiling. It's a 7-year IDIQ. It's $5.8 billion.
$5.8 billion.
For allotment for that. So that's really exciting for small business dealing with the Air Force under that specialized program.
Do the incumbents from the first program automatically get a seat on the second, or they have to compete for it?
From what I hear, kind of boots on the ground thought process is that they do. They're part of that mix. But again, it's going to promote a lot of subbing opportunities as well. But the whole focus on this is specifically for small business.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jamie. It would appear to us that we're talking about a number of big, broad opportunities that both for prime contractors and then teaming opportunities for middle and small contractors. So we're going to continue this discussion when we come back from our commercial break.
So did we win that government contract?
We did.
And?
And now we've got to deal with the regulatory hurdles.
Well, good luck with that.
When the government's your client, you need to play by their rules.
And the rules change more than you think.
Exactly. We need someone who's done this before. Plus, it's complicated, so we're going with BDO.
BDO?
People who know government contracting know BDO. AFCEA has been bringing government and industry together since 1946. By joining AFCEA, you'll reach the decision makers and become part of the discussion. You'll increase market visibility, gain market insight, receive discounts on AFCEA member services and events, and manage and engage corporate associates. AFCEA is the association of choice. Join today at www.afcea.org.
Before our commercial break, we were just sort of getting into the large Air Force contract, NetSense 2. Let's go back to that a little bit. Talk to us about, let's say, its geographic location. Talk about whether it's a good platform for small businesses to participate or incumbents.
Absolutely.
Let's hear some more about that.
Right now, there's currently 12 awardees that have been granted, obviously access within a specialized program, and ironically, 9 of them are local, within the Washington D.C., Virginia area. So we have a major influence. So
9 of the 12 are in the DC area.
in this region, which is pretty astonishing.
That's good. Okay.
So most of them in Northern Virginia.
Most of them in Northern Virginia.
Exactly.
All right. And the small business support would be in the area of like program support, acquisition support.
Well, it's IT support. It kind of covers the full gamut with the focus on IT is probably the primary focus.
All right, we'll move on to the next one.
Sure.
Okay, Health and Human Services, there's another one that you were talking about. Let's hear the story on
exactly. Well, there's actually a program, it's part of NITAC, and basically what this program, it's a new program called CIO CS, and basically what this program, it's replacing ECS 3, so current contract holders, and kind of segue what we were talking about before, current contract holders of the ECS 3 program are really excited about this new program because it's another next generation further cause of that particular program that ran its course. But it's IT commodities is kind of what the program's strengths are. So there's going to be a lot of recognition for those current incumbents already in place, and there will be some new incumbents as well.
And what's the ceiling on that?
The ceiling on that one specifically right now is $10 billion, and it's a 10-year IDIQ, so it's got some longevity. So folks are really encouraged.
It sounds like it could have a play for local businesses, like you said.
Absolutely.
It could have a play for large businesses, and then there could be some small business teaming that would take place.
Absolutely.
Do you expect that there will be a separate set-aside track, or will they be just encouraged to team?
I think it's just encouraged to team. I don't think there'll be a set-aside track for that, but that particular program is so big regionally, within this area, and it's got such a high-profile recognition. ECS3 has always been one of the big programs with a lot of incumbents in place for that. So they're really excited about that.
Okay, so we've talked about a number of different agencies, both on the defense side and the civilian side. Let's talk about the agency on the civilian side, the General Services Administration, GSA. What's going on there?
The GSA, exactly.
The GSA.
GSA is doing something really unique right now. They're creating a new platform, and the actual platform is actually called Common Acquisition Platform, and it's basically an e-portal. They're trying to entice agencies to actually go through the GSA with electronic purchases and actually doing e-commerce, through basically roughly 500 agencies, in the sense of having access to this. But it's a virtual hallway where they can actually purchase their goods through this portal and fulfill their agency's needs. And what will, the whole purpose of this is because every agency is kind of working as an individual, kind of mindset, and this gets it, for buying power.
Okay, so the agencies would go to the portal essentially, or the hallway, and then they would use this vehicle to buy their stuff.
Exactly,
their
IT services, IT goods. It's kind of all encompassing. It's pretty exciting for GSA to kind of be in this realm. Again, we're trying to reduce, obviously, our budgets and obviously costs that are associated with this. The agencies themselves, it's kind of hard to crowd them all together, and GSA is trying to do a terrific job with that. So.
Would these buys be mostly for technology, or do they ever branch into services?
Well, these buys are, they say technology as well. I mean, it's not just products, but it's services as well. But the beauty about it is it's almost going to be like an e-buy purchase, which is obviously what GSA has that currently already in place. But this is going to be a whole other realm dealing with the agencies and helping with their purchasing power.
Right.
And buying
So
power.
all these federal agencies then could theoretically use this vehicle to procure their technology or their services.
Absolutely.
So help me think this through. Is this necessarily good for the government contracting industry? I mean, it sounds like there would be a consolidation of buyers. There would be therefore less RFPs and so on. What's your sense of that?
Well, I think it's just going to do a roundabout going through GSA and going through that instead of directly with the actual contractors. So I think that's the premise with that. And GSA is trying to get more global, within obviously the national scene. But I think that's the
well, that's
the
an important development, which we will maintain some vigilance on that and make sure that we give you reports from time to time on the latest of that. We're going to take a break again, but when we come back, I'd like to sort of expand the view to talk about the market activity, the pulse, the tempo.
Absolutely.
So we'll be right back after this commercial message.
Working in contract management is a complex job. Creating, executing, managing contracts. It's an ever-changing world, and our members share the same challenges. At the National Contract Management Association, we know this business, gathering the best minds in our field, furthering your career by providing knowledge and training. Together, we've figured it out.
Questions. Do you lack win strategy, themes, and discriminators? Are you being outmaneuvered by your competition? Did you get a late start on your proposal? If you answered yes to one or more of these nightmare scenarios, we can help. Hi, I'm Jim McCarthy, owner of Key Solutions. We help government contractors win government contracts. And for over 30 years, KSI has helped clients win or retain over $130 billion in government contracts by providing the keys to winning. We assist companies both large and small to enter the U.S. government contracts market or to increase their market shares. We have worked with 87 of the top 100 government contractors and literally hundreds of small businesses. So if you're chasing a must-win contract opportunity, go to our website, aockeysolutions.com, and click on Win. It's a tough market out there. Don't go it alone.
Since 1941, the USO has been lifting the spirits of America's troops and their families. Members of our military continue to make sacrifices and defend our nation. That's why the USO of Metropolitan Washington, Baltimore is committed to serving them throughout their years of service. USO Metro is the way for you to say thanks to our local military members, their families, and our wounded warriors and caregivers. Please visit us at usometro.org.
Jamie Bratten, I'm going to change the discussion in just a minute to a market view, but right now, before we leave that where we were, let's talk about two other agencies, DHS and NASA. Give us a quick snapshot of those.
Sure. Well, Eagle 2 is obviously, everybody knows, it's a very hot program right now. There's been a release of your potential candidates or actually awardees per se in certain pools and so forth. So that's obviously really big with a lot of our members in the sense of intel, any specialized intel with that. The other one is SOUP 4, which is actually there was a huge conference in the Washington, D.C. area a little bit over a week ago. OSDBU, there were some SOUP 4 representatives there and had firsthand dialogue with some of those folks and substantiated with some other sources as well. They're really entertaining the thought taking that from a 7-year IDIQ to a 10-year IDIQ, and there's going to be a new release of that, again, another generation of that, which will be SOUP 5. SOUP 5. So current SOUP 4 holders, the advantage of it, obviously they went with the premise it's going to be a 7-year IDIQ. The premise now it could be a 10-year IDIQ.
Yeah, so they get a longer period of performance.
Duration,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's good. So let's take it up a notch here and talk about the market. So how would you characterize the current government contracts market?
It's a tough question. I tell you what, I did some preliminary reports, and some of these stats and statistics are actually pretty staggering. I did kind of a preliminary analysis from January 1, 2013 to May 1, 2013, and did the same range for 2014.
So 4 months for each.
Exactly.
Last year
For just contrasting comparison between for a couple different data points. One, task orders, amount of actual solicitations, and based on exercise options, dollar amounts, predicated on that.
So what does your data show?
It was pretty incredible data. So basically, just in a nutshell, I did that range as I just shared. There were 783,000 task orders that were issued in 2013 in that date range. In the same time frame in 2014, there was 392,000 task orders, so roughly half, almost equivalently half of that amount, which is a staggering number. Yeah. Now keep in mind, as you know, sequestration period was last year. Exactly in that kind of time frame. So that's
okay. So let's examine that just a second. So if I heard you correctly, you said that comparing apples to apples, that there's about half the number this year than last year, and yet some people say that we've, quote, turned the corner.
Exactly.
So how would you reconcile that?
That's a great point, and I've had many discussions about this. I would say in 2013, we were obviously on a downward slide, okay, in a sense of going down into that deep trough.
Yes.
I think right now we're going outward, in a sense of getting out of that trough, period and going up. Even though the amount of dollars per se, which is another figure I'm going to share in a couple of seconds, is dramatically different as well. But I firmly believe, because of activity as of late, there's been a lot of activity about 3-4 weeks ago, in a sense of time frame that really spurred.
So the trend suggests that it's going to accelerate at that point. Okay,
exactly.
But if you match apples and apples this year against last year, then essentially it's half of what it was.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So that sort of supports what a lot of people in the industry said. All right, now give us another empirical benchmark.
Well, this is the staggering part, the actual, based on all exercise options, dollar amounts for the task orders.
Okay.
In 2013, there was $143 billion, again, year-to-date, January 1 to May 1st of 2013. In comparison with 2014, we're at $71 billion. So we're roughly half.
Half again.
Exactly. So, which equates to, basically, obviously what we just shared, half the amount of task orders. So, and the half amount of dollars, per se, to equate to that.
And that would be consistent.
Yeah, that would be consistent with that.
But you mentioned earlier that there's some evidence that the trend is going to be more favorable in the future, and that would be borne out by these numbers as well, I assume. Is that right?
I would gauge that as well. And then what goes in tandem with that, basically everybody's inquisitive, well, let's equate how many solicitations were done in 2013. In the same time frame compared to 2014 again, same time frame.
And what does your research tell us?
It's almost an exact match. It winds up being 54,000 were done in 2013, 54,341 to be exact. 2014 were a little bit over 52,000. So roughly about the same number.
So
exactly.
what accounts for that? Yet the number of awards is down.
Well,
and so
it's very interesting because when you take the amount of solicitations being roughly the same, same time frame, and then you take the amount of task orders being roughly half, in the sense of that. So you can equate that in a couple different scenarios. Obviously you have sequestration, concerns that were last year. Right. What makes this year a little bit different, obviously compared to last year, are the expectations for the scope of the projects a little bit broader, your scope, because again, you're working with less amount of task orders. So you can interpret a couple different ways, but these stats and figures are very interesting. So it's a dynamic range.
The bottom line for our audience then is, what does this data tell you right now?
Well, the data tells, it tells a couple different thoughts. The government is issuing obviously less task orders.
Okay.
That's
less task orders.
So either they're doing purchase orders that cover a wide spectrum, in a sense of range of scope of whatever those contracts actually entail, to do less work in the sense of putting out all these different task orders for the same task activity. That's one thought process. Again, trying to maximize them because they're working with less amount of people. So again, just maximizing our efforts. I would definitely gauge that as happening firsthand. That's an obvious notion. Obviously, budget. Dollars are just obviously just not being spent is obviously what it has been.
Okay, so what I interpret from that is industry, hold on, things are going to get better, and the trend is favorable.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, with that, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, I'm going to draw Jamie out on a few other critical points. So we'll be right back.
As you've seen from watching our show, we've begun to produce and air commercials. And the response from prospective advertisers has been very strong for a couple of really smart reasons. First off, advertising in Government Contracting Weekly has virtually no waste. Our audience is made up almost exclusively of contracting executives and procurement officers. If that's your target market, we've got you covered. Secondly, we include commercial production within the reasonable cost of an advertising schedule. And even better, in producing your commercial, we utilize the 30+ years of experience of Key Solutions, who've helped their clients win over $130 billion in contracts, in part by scoping out and refining the most impactful message. If you'd like to learn more, contact us at governmentcontractingweekly.com and click on Advertise.
The Veteran Institute for Procurement, or VIP for short, was established in 2009 to arm our vets to win in the federal marketplace. VIP is a 27-hour, 3-day comprehensive educational program for owners, principals, C-level executives of veteran-owned businesses. And it's working. A survey of 143 VIP graduates reported that they added nearly 1,000 jobs since graduating from the program, and on average have increased their revenue 45% within the first year of graduation. 348 veteran-owned businesses nationwide have graduated from the program, which is funded entirely by the Montgomery County Chamber Community Foundation, and the program is offered at no cost to participants. To learn more, please visit our website at nationalvip.org.
I'm back with Jamie Bratten from EZ GovOpps. In the time remaining, I'd just like to ask you a little bit of questions. Sure. What are your customers looking for? What are they asking? What kind of issues are coming forth?
Well, I tell you, the biggest question is forecast. They want to find those nuggets, based obviously on their expertise, the availability to find teaming partners and so forth to fill that void, and to create that opportunity that they didn't recognize before, because again they're going at it solo. So
well, how far out?
Well, they'll go several years out.
Several years out.
Exactly, to try to analyze some of the data.
So how about this? If you had to characterize what is the industry missing in the sense of a firm such as yours, what tools do you have that maybe they're not even aware of? How can you help them win work? Some
of the attributes, is the integration of data, obviously making data talk, but the aspect of actually having hands-on researchers within EZ GovOpps. So we actually will do that specialized intel no inquiry through the actual agencies.
So you just don't take a printout and pass it on to your customer. You do some analysis and checking the data, QC work and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, well, Jamie, I want to thank you very much for being on today's show. You gave us some very interesting tips about not only specific opportunities, but the market in general, and we thank you, and of course we look forward to the next time you come on and we'll take it up.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Likewise.
Okay. Okay, well, we're going to step away now for what we call the mailbag, and in this segment we'll talk about our answers to some of the questions that you, the viewer, have posed. A common question we're asked by our viewers is, what can be done to foster dialogue between government and contractors about acquisition reform? Here are two suggestions that I'd like to offer to spark the dialogue that I would agree is very, very much needed. First, form a commission and then convene a summit conference of acquisition leaders from both government and industry to examine needed change. Interview thought leaders from both camps. Solicit recommendations. Examine case studies, both good and bad. Prepare blue ribbon recommendations. OFPP would be a natural to spearhead the commission and the summit conference. Not-for-profit organizations such as NCMA, AFCEA, and the Professional Services Council, and others, could also be intricately involved. My second suggestion is to assign from within government an industry special advocate, or ISA, for each procurement above a certain dollar threshold. The ISA's job as an official member of the Source Selection Board is to foster competition, dialogue with interested parties, ensure a level playing field, resolve competitive issues and concerns, and bring forward industry's point of view throughout the acquisition lifecycle. The ISA for a specific opportunity would supplement, not replace, the duties of the OSDBUs or competition advocates at the agency level. A part of Government Contracting Weekly's mission is to bridge the gap between government and industry. And if you have ideas on how to foster communication, please let us hear from you. I hope that my conversation with Jamie this morning was able to give you a better insight into what's happening in the marketplace as well as what's on the horizon from a revenue potential standpoint. I want to thank Jamie Bratten for joining me today, but most importantly, I want to thank you, our viewers, now all over the world, for once again making Government Contracting Weekly a regular part of your learning regimen. On behalf of all my colleagues at Key Solutions, I'm Jim McCarthy, and I'll see you next week.
You've been watching Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored each week by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. For additional information, comments, questions, or suggestions, please write us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.